Hey, what's up?
You have stickers?
Stickers?
Oh, never mind. I thought you said stickers. I got excited.
Oh, sorry.
Cool. Welcome.
Hi. I'm sorry. I've got to turn on Meerkat real quick.
Are you? Okay. I like that.
What's that? Okay, you're going to Meerkat for me? I got to beat him in points, though.
Oh, come on.
Hey.
Okay, I'll get on later and I'll try and okay, so no, everyone's probably confused what we're talking about.
I figured that we should just start here.
Yeah, let's just start here. So I won't go into this too long. We've been playing with Meerkat, which is a live video streaming service, and apparently I might be on it right now. And Danielle and I have this slight competition on the leaderboard, and she's been trying really hard. I've barely been trying, but she's beating me. So anyway, Danielle, thanks for coming.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So they're going to ask for, anything they want?
Anything. So I'm monitoring the room here, the hip chat room, and just ask your questions there. I'll bring them up if they're okay, or at least good. And that Meerkat.
You're all on the internet now.
We can jump in. But first off, do you want to quickly talk about Mattermark and what it is and who you are?
Yeah, so I run a company called Mattermark. We're 30 people over in North Beach, and we track startups. So we track over 1 million companies right now, and our goal is to eventually track every business in the world. There's roughly 250 million companies globally, and we want to be able to know when they're born on the internet and track all the signals available about them so that we can figure out the global value creation chain of startups and private companies and public companies, ultimately so that people can stop making the same spreadsheets over and over again and spend a little more time doing the fun stuff, being human and talking to each other.
Yeah. Awesome. The first question, this isn't a serious question, but Sebastian says, what does it feel like beating Ryan on the leaderboard? He's referring to Meerkat.
Oh, it feels great, but I've been working really hard at it all weekend, so I feel like I've earned it.
Yes.
So you guys should come compete with us.
Yes, it's fun. Ahmed says, are you a technology founder? I think he is referring to, are you an engineer?
Yeah, so I wrote the first prototype for Referly, which was my product before this one. And then for Mattermark, I was more of an analyst, so I didn't write as much of the code. I built a lot of the front end, but our product now is way more technical. So there's a lot more crawlers and distributed systems and stuff where I'd be a good prototyper, but probably that would break if I was to build it. But I've always been a front-end developer, so I can always whip up something beautiful.
Now, I'll add on to that. Do you have to be a technical founder to start a company in the technology space?
I mean, you don't have to. Tons of people aren't, and they start companies. I think a lot of times people assume founders are technical. Well, if they're guys. They don't assume you're technical if you're a woman. But it doesn't really matter. It's just can you get other people to help you build stuff? And that's a little harder, right, to ask someone else to take the risk. So it was nice having built my own prototype, because when I got into YC, I wasn't depending on anyone else. But yeah, it can go either way.
Yeah, and I have a question. I'm going to take this opportunity to ask a question. You had Referly, and then you switched to Mattermark over time, but you wrote a really good post about, I think it was called Zombie Startups, and you were very transparent in telling the story about Referly and how it ultimately wasn't completely failing, but it wasn't going really where you wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And you ended up shutting it down, and then you eventually started Mattermark. Can you talk about how you came up with the idea for Mattermark, and maybe more generally, if someone wants to start a startup, do you have any guidance on coming up with ideas or validating ideas?
Yeah, I mean, after Referly failed, we felt like we needed to work on something we were actually passionate about. I really wanted to cover tech as a media company, and so I had no, relationships. I had no leads. I didn't have any sources to find scoops about funding or anything. But I thought the data was pretty interesting. Initially, we took a big data dump from Crunchbase. This is day 0. And we thought we would use it to tell stories that no one else was telling. I always thought, Michael Arrington, who started TechCrunch, had this incredible knack for writing about things really early. And that's every journalist's dream, to cover something. Getting excited about Meerkat is fun because it's fun to be first. People love that. But in doing that, we just discovered that the data was so valuable, and we would never be able to write every story. So by giving people tools, then they could kind of write the story, the narrative, whatever question they're trying to answer for their business is the story. So I guess the advice would just be start with something that's interesting to you, so that if it sucks for a while, it's still fun. And then if you can find some other people that also find that interesting, that's a great place to start. But probably the biggest thing for us is that we didn't have a big market, and it didn't really matter, because we actually really solved that small group's problem. And you kind of have to trust like something good will happen.
So ML in HipChat chat here, he says, what are some challenges you've faced as a female founder?
I mean, now, well, 20 to 40% of any conversation on stage is about being a female founder. It's like, great, you know, like actually know about a lot of other things, like you could ask me about. So that's a little bit annoying. But while we're on the topic, I mean, I think there's generally an undercurrent of confusion or sexism in the Valley, and you always are dealing with it. And because I'm a woman, I think a lot of people expect that I will do a better job dealing with that than my male counterparts, so have to work even harder to be sensitive to it. Doesn't mean I can always see what's happening. I've been really lucky to work with men who've treated me really well, so sometimes I feel a little bit oblivious to it. Yeah, you just I feel a sense of responsibility to make it more awesome for other women, and that's a little daunting, but I mean, we're just going to do it.
Yeah, you spoke at the Female Founders event. I think it was the last weekend, the weekend before, and it's a great event. So moving on, Sarah actually asked for someone getting into the startup space, since you basically look at startups every single day. For someone that wants to break into the startup world, do you have any advice on how to do so?
Yeah, don't build a consumer product. Build a B2B product that actually solves a real problem. Because, I mean, build a consumer product if you want. I did the first time. I suck at consumer products, so I'm super biased. Like, if you just want to start a startup, and you want to make money and you want to be independent, and like build something with a customer. If you like want to be trendy and make pretty things, I love making pretty things. It just depends on what you want your life to be like. I love the validation of B2B. Just like you either solved the problem or you didn't.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that. A lot of people assume that you have to be in Silicon Valley or one of those startup hubs to break into the startup world. Would you agree or disagree? And maybe if you're not in this area, what would you say if you were giving someone advice?
Well, I think all the good exits happen here. So like you could start a startup anywhere, but you're going to exit here. So it just kind of is a difference of like what you want that outcome to be. You don't have to do the first 4 years. Like if the average life of your company is going to be 7 to 10 years between now and getting acquired, you could do the first like 4 years in Seattle or Boston or New York or Boulder or LA or wherever, but you're going to get bought here probably. So that's just the reality. So if you want to get it bought at a higher price, move here sooner so that you'll know everybody so you can get a better deal. But if you don't give a shit about that, then like, yeah, whatever. I mean, the US is awesome. Like every city has a startup community. I think it's also a really good chance you're going to fail. And if you fail in a city that you hate, that really sucks, as opposed to like struggling, but with your network of people that love you. So those are the trade-offs.
Yeah. So Salmon has a question. Let's see. Should startups focus on traction and marketing after some level of product market fit, or are the distribution strategies are needed from day zero? I'm not sure exactly. It's kind of a funny
I didn't get it. What was the question?
The question is more around at what point, I'll augment it slightly, at what point do you focus on really focusing on marketing and distribution after you've reached product market fit? Is there a tipping point where you're really buckling down? And like at Mattermark, for example, at what point did you realize, oh, we have something, now we really need to spread the word? Or was it on day zero?
So we have one marketing person at Mattermark. We have 30 people. So, I mean, so marketing, you get rejected at scale. And sales, you get rejected one rejection at a time. So when you stop getting rejected one at a time, I was just talking to a friend about objections in sales meetings. I think once you know how to overcome objections at scale, then it makes sense to do marketing. Because you kind of, that's the other side of targeting, is knowing what you're overcoming. At some point, the cost of acquiring a customer gets so low with things like content that it's sort of inevitable that you should do it. I'm a big fan of just picking one channel and being really good at it rather than trying to do everything. So like we only do content, and when we do content, I think we're in the top 1% of startups doing content. And I'm so passionate about that channel, I almost think about marketing like it's product. So I think it's also when you find a channel that you can really invest in.
Yeah. So Kevin has a question here, actually related more to team building. How do you deal with conflicting personalities internally within your organization, such as team, investors, partners, and so on? And I will add on one more thing is there's an importance, especially with some startups, maybe more so than others, of having diversity within the startup. At the same time, everyone should get along and be able to work together. So how do you think about that as you've grown to 30 people in a year or so? I mean, you've grown rapidly.
I don't really believe everyone should like get along as like a primary important thing. Actually, like I think it's really important that to build something that's going to be successful, and that means like you don't know the answers, so you do need to argue. So actually, I think it's much more about teaching people how to argue in an effective way where you resolve things and you move things forward. It's pretty unhealthy to just like not have any conflict. I think it's unnatural. It's kind of like if your friend was about to like propose to his girlfriend and they'd never had a fight. It's like, really? So I just think that just there were a lot of things in there. But you know, having a few people on the team who are experienced managers has been a huge help for us. Obviously, like many startups, I think our average age is pretty young. So you know that means a lot of people have been individual contributors, and maybe they haven't been in charge of resolving conflict. So I think that we are really learning a lot from bringing on more experienced people, and then also making it a conscious choice to be good at it. I mean, just like we made like doing HR and diversity and hiring women, and we just did a piece today on parental leave and how important that is in the Atlantic. I think just doing it.
Sam has a follow-on to this. How have you recruited and how have you built the team?
Yeah, so we have 2 full-time recruiters. So I mentioned we have 1 marketing person. Like the ratio is pretty interesting. We did that very early. So our 11th hire was a full-time recruiter. We basically knew recruiting here was going to be really difficult, and we wanted it to be part of our brand. I think some great tools for the people listening that just like need some quick hits. AngelList is awesome. I've made a lot of great hires on there. I've made a lot of great hires on hired.com. But ultimately, it's network. I mean, asking people and hustling for the referrals, going through your entire LinkedIn and contacting every single person. And like, I think we're going to win mostly because we got people full-time hustling on that every minute.
Let's chat later about that because we're growing the team and we don't have a recruiter in-house.
It's
maybe
worth it.
We should at some point.
It's worth it.
But, cool. So before we move on, is there anything you want to mention that's happening at Mattermark or anything you want to plug before we leave?
I should think about this. Assuming? I mean, we're always hiring, so certainly, you know, if you want to rip some mad code. I mean, if you're interested in here's a fun problem. Like maybe you should just do this anyway, and then I'll hire you. Like, how would you crawl the entire internet and like every single website and decide if it's a business or not? Like that's a problem that we have to solve. Like how would you crawl every single website? And then how would you listen so that every time a new website is created, you can decide if it's a business or not? If you want to solve that problem and then build search results against that, like, then you should come talk to me, and I would like to hire you to solve that problem.
Thanks, Danielle. It was
Thanks.
fun.
See you later. Yeah.
How many points did you get on that?
I don't know. There's 139 people watching right now.
That's pretty good. I like
Bye.
That. Okay, thanks. So next up we have Alexander from iDoc24 coming up in a moment.